What if your faith was tested not by words but by fire? What if obedience to God meant standing alone before kings, lions, and flames? That was the life of Daniel, a young exile torn from his home, trained in a foreign palace, but loyal to a kingdom not of this world. He lived in Babylon, the empire of gold and pride. Yet he carried inside him something the empire could never touch: faith that does not burn. Daniel's story is not just about miracles. It is about identity in exile, integrity under pressure, and faith that transforms nations. Those who know their God shall be strong and do great exploits. Daniel 11:32. So before we begin, comment below, what fire has tested your faith lately? Like this video to help share God's word, and subscribe so you don't miss the next story of courage and faith. Because today, we walk with Daniel through the court of kings, through the furnace of fire, and into the lion's den, to discover what happens when one person dares to stay faithful in a world that forgets God. Jerusalem has fallen. The Babylonian army moves through the city like a storm. Among the captives, young men of noble blood, hands uncalloused, eyes full of fear and fire. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim king of Judah into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God. Daniel 1-2. Among them is Daniel, maybe 17, torn from home but carrying something no one can steal, the memory of God's presence in Babylon. He's given a new name, a new language, a new culture. The empire tries to rewrite his identity. But Daniel knows names may change, but truth does not. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Daniel 1-8. He refuses the king's food. Not out of rebellion, but out of devotion. Faith for him is not a performance, it is a posture. And so, while others feast to please men, Daniel fasts to honor God. While others adapt to survive, he obeys to belong. In that choice, exile becomes calling. Babylon thinks it owns him, but heaven has already claimed him. Years have passed. Daniel now stands in the courts of power, where kings rule by fear and dreams unsettle the night. King Nebuchadnezzar wakes from a vision, a dream so vivid that it shakes his soul. Yet when he calls his magicians and wise men, none can tell him what it means. The king said, "If you do not make known to me the dream and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces." Daniel 2:05. Terror fills the palace. Even Daniel and his friends are marked for death, but Daniel does what men of faith always do. He turns panic into prayer. Then Daniel went to his house and made the thing known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, that they would desire mercies of the God of heaven concerning this secret. Daniel 2:17-18. And in the stillness of the night, while kings cannot sleep, heaven speaks to a servant on his knees. Then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Daniel 2:19. The dream unfolds, a statue of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay kingdoms rising and falling until a stone, cut without hands, strikes the image and becomes a mountain that fills the earth. And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Daniel 2:44. Daniel stands before the most powerful ruler on earth and tells him that his empire will not last, that every kingdom built by pride will crumble, and only the kingdom of God endures. This is not just a dream about history. It is a prophecy about the human heart. Every man builds statues of success, of ego, of power, but time and truth eventually strike them down. Daniel's wisdom is not his own. It flows from the one who reveals what lies hidden. Blessed be the name of God for and ever, for wisdom and might are his. Daniel 2:20. When the world honors knowledge, God honors humility. And in that moment, a slave becomes a counselor to kings. The king who dreamed of gold now builds it. A colossal image rises 90 feet high, shining under the desert sun, a symbol of Babylon's pride. And an order is given. When you hear the sound of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, and all kinds of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Daniel 3:5. Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, better known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, stand motionless against the wave of obedience. They know what defiance means. They can see the furnace blazing in the distance. Yet faith is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to obey despite it. They are brought before the king. The ruler's face burns hotter than the fire. Is it true you do not serve my gods? If you are ready to bow, good. But if not, you shall be cast into the fiery furnace. Daniel 3:14-15. The answer that comes is one of the greatest declarations of faith ever spoken. Our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. And he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods. Daniel 3:17-18. They are thrown into the flames. The soldiers who cast them in die from the heat. Yet, as the fire rises, something greater appears. Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? But I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire. And the 4th is like the Son of God. Daniel 3:24-25. The miracle is not that they escape the fire, but that God joins them inside it. When they walk out, not a hair is singed, not a thread is burned, not even the smell of smoke clings to them. There is no other God who can deliver after this sort. Daniel 3:29. The furnace becomes the proof. Faith doesn't keep you from the fire. It reveals who walks there with you. The years pass and Babylon forgets. Kings rise who no longer remember Daniel's God. One night in the palace of Belshazzar, pleasure and pride drowned the echo of fear. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze and iron, wood and stone. Daniel 5:4. The music stops. A cold wind moves through the hall. And on the plaster of the wall beside the lampstand, a hand appears, its fingers tracing words of fire. No voice, no face, only light and movement. The crowd freezes. The king's knees tremble. His cup falls to the floor. Then the king's countenance changed and his thoughts troubled him. The joints of his loins were loosed and his knees smote one against another. Daniel 5:6. The wise men are summoned, but no one can read the writing. And then someone remembers, the old prophet, the exile who once spoke the secrets of heaven. Daniel is brought before the throne. The lamps flicker against his calm face. He looks not at the king, but at the words, Mene, mene, tekel, upharsin. Daniel 5:25. God has numbered your kingdom and finished it. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Daniel 5:26-27. The room grows heavy with silence. Pride has been measured. Time has run out. Outside, the walls of Babylon are already breached. Before dawn, the golden empire falls. To the philosopher, the writing on the wall is justice. To the mystic, it is mercy, for even judgment is a call to awaken. O stillness. Every soul, like every kingdom, is eventually weighed. And Daniel teaches the hidden truth. It is not the might of the world that endures, but the hand that writes unseen, still measuring, still calling hearts back to wisdom. A new king rises. Darius of Persia. He admires Daniel's wisdom and promotes him above the others. But envy is a quiet poison, and it begins to whisper in the hearts of those who serve beside him. They search for fault, yet find none. So they build a trap where righteousness itself becomes the crime. They persuade the king to sign a decree that for 30 days, no one may pray to any god or man except Darius. It is law, a net woven from pride and flattery. But Daniel, hearing it, does not argue, does not hide. He simply goes home, opens his window toward Jerusalem, and kneels. 3 times a day, as always, he prays and gives thanks. He knows who rules above kings, and his loyalty is not for sale. When the spies report him, the king is grieved but bound by his own word. Daniel is thrown into the den of lions. A stone seals the mouth of the pit. That night the palace cannot sleep. But deep in the darkness of the den, faith does not tremble. The prophet waits not for rescue, but in trust. He has faced fire before, though in another story. Now it is his turn to walk unafraid through teeth and shadow. At dawn, Darius runs to the den and cries out, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you? And from the depths comes a calm voice, my God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths, and they have not hurt me. When Daniel is lifted out, no wound is found on him because faith leaves no scar. The lions remain silent witnesses to the power of obedience. The king commands that Daniel's accusers be cast into the same pit, and justice, swift and complete, follows. Then Darius writes to all nations, declaring that the God of Daniel is the living God, whose kingdom shall never be destroyed. Faith that does not bow becomes faith that changes empires. Daniel's life proves that courage is not noise, but stillness, and that the same presence that stood in the fire also watches in the dark. Nebuchadnezzar, the golden king of Babylon, dreams again. This time it is not a statue of kingdoms, but a tree that reaches to heaven. Its leaves are beautiful, its fruit abundant, and under its shade the beasts of the field find rest. I saw and behold a tree in the midst of the earth, and its height was great. The tree grew and became strong. Its top reached to heaven, and it was visible to the end of the whole earth. Daniel 4:10-11. But the dream turns. A holy watcher descends from heaven and cries out that the tree must be cut down, its branches stripped, its fruit scattered. Only the stump remains, bound with iron and bronze, left to stand drenched with the dew of heaven. Let his heart be changed from that of a man, and let a beast's heart be given unto him, and let 7 times pass over him. Daniel 4:16. The king calls for Daniel, the interpreter of mysteries. And Daniel, troubled yet faithful, tells him the truth no flatterer would dare to speak. The tree, O king, is you. Your greatness has reached the heavens, but your pride has closed your heart. Unless you humble yourself, the Most High will bring you low. For 12 months, the warning hangs like silence over the city. Then one evening, Nebuchadnezzar walks upon the roof of his palace and says, "Is not this great Babylon which I have built by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" While the word was in the king's mouth, there fell a voice from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, to you it is spoken. The kingdom is departed from you." Daniel 4:31. The crown falls. The ruler becomes as a beast. He eats grass like the ox. His body is wet with dew. His hair grows long like eagle's feathers and his nails like bird's claws, and yet even in madness grace waits. After the appointed time the king looks to heaven, and reason returns like dawn breaking over the ruins of pride. At the end of the days Nebuchadnezzar, lifted up mine eyes unto heaven, and mine understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High. Daniel 4:34. He confesses what power could never teach him. Those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Daniel 4:37. The dream fulfilled its purpose. The axe was mercy, the fall was salvation. Pride had built a tower. Humility built a throne. The night after Babylon's fall, Daniel is older, but his vision is clearer. The kingdom of silver has replaced the kingdom of gold, just as the dream had said. But the prophet's spirit does not rest. The God who once revealed the secrets of kings now opens the deeper secrets of history. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream and told the sum of the matters. Daniel 7:1. In the dream, the sea boils beneath a storm, and from the deep rise 4 great beasts, each one unlike the other. One like a lion with eagle's wings, another like a bear devouring much flesh, a third like a leopard with 4 wings, and the fourth beyond description terrible and strong, its iron teeth breaking everything in its path. Daniel trembles. He does not see monsters. He sees empires, the rise and fall of human power repeating the same violence with different faces. Then the vision turns toward light. I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame. Daniel 7:09. A river of fire flows before that throne. Thousands upon thousands stand to serve him. Books are opened. Judgment begins not of beasts but of hearts. And behold, one like the Son of Man came with the clouds of heaven and came to the Ancient of Days. And there was given him dominion and glory and a kingdom. Daniel 7:13-14. Daniel can hardly breathe. In a single moment, he sees every age collapse into one truth. The kingdoms of men are temporary, but the kingdom of the Son of Man will never end. The philosopher might call this the pattern of history. The mystic calls it the handwriting of God across time itself. Every empire that rises is already numbered. Every crown that glitters is already fading. But the light that Daniel sees will never dim, and so he writes, not as a historian of kings, but as a witness to eternity breaking into time. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom that which shall not be destroyed. Daniel 7:14. Daniel's life continues through the shifting empires. The Babylonian banners are gone, replaced by the symbols of Persia. But the spirit that speaks to him does not belong to any nation. Once again, the prophet's nights are filled with revelation. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. Daniel 8:1. He stands by a river in vision and sees a ram with 2 great horns, pushing westward and northward and southward. No creature can stand before it. Then a goat comes from the west, moving so fast that its feet do not touch the ground. It strikes the ram with fury and breaks its horns. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia. Daniel 8:20-21. The goat's great horn breaks, and in its place 4 rise up toward the 4 winds of heaven. From one of them comes a smaller horn, fierce, cunning, and proud, one that magnifies itself against the prince of hosts and defiles the sanctuary. Daniel watches until he cannot breathe. He sees kingdoms fight, temples desecrated, truth trampled under power. But even as history darkens, a voice declares a limit, unto 2,300 days. Then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Daniel 8:14. The meaning overwhelms him. He falls to the ground sick for days, not because he doubts God, but because he sees how deeply human arrogance wounds the world. To the philosopher, the vision is political. To Daniel, it is spiritual war. The endless clash between pride and purity, between self and surrender. And through it all, one truth whispers beneath the images. God's providence governs even the chaos of kings. Every empire that seems unstoppable already has its limit written in heaven. When Daniel rises from the vision, he carries both terror and peace. He knows that history's storms are real, but he also knows that the river he stood beside still flows under all of them. The unseen current of divine order, moving creation toward redemption. The vision of the evening and the morning, which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. Daniel 8:26. Daniel grows old among foreign palaces, but his heart remains turned toward Jerusalem. He studies the writings of Jeremiah and discovers that the 70 years of exile are almost complete. Understanding that time alone will not restore a nation, he begins to pray with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. I set my face unto the Lord God, to seek by prayer and supplications with fasting and sackcloth and ashes. Daniel 9:3. His words are not proud or political. They are confession. We have sinned and have committed iniquity, and have done wickedly and have rebelled, even by departing from thy precepts and from thy judgments. Daniel 9:5. He does not speak as a judge, but as a son asking forgiveness for his family. The tone of the prayer is humility itself, a prophet taking the weight of his people into his own mouth, while he is still speaking. An answer arrives. Yea, whiles I was speaking in prayer, even the man Gabriel, whom I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, touched me about the time of the evening oblation. Daniel 9:21. The messenger comes not with thunder, but with understanding. Gabriel tells Daniel that his prayer has been heard from the first word. Then he opens to him a prophecy of 70 weeks, a measure of mercy and justice, marking the time when transgression will end and everlasting righteousness will begin. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish the transgression and to make an end of sins, and to bring in everlasting righteousness. Daniel 9:24. The numbers are not given for calculation but for comfort, that the chaos of history is not random, that every moment, even suffering, has its appointed limit. Daniel listens with trembling. He does not see all the details, but he knows that the promise points beyond Babylon, beyond the ages, toward a redemption that will touch every nation. When the vision ends, he remains in silence, not to solve a mystery, but to rest in the assurance that heaven has heard. Therefore, understand the matter and consider the vision. Daniel 9:23. Faith, for Daniel, becomes more than endurance. It is the peace of knowing that the times are in God's hands, And that prayer, whispered in exile, moves the clockwork of eternity. Years pass. The names of kings change, but Daniel still keeps his daily rhythm of prayer. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, the river again becomes the place of encounter. He fasts 3 weeks, eating no pleasant bread, and waits for the answer he cannot describe. In those days I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh nor wine in my mouth. Daniel 10:2-3. On the 24th day, as he stands beside the river Hiddekel, his eyes opened to a light brighter than the desert sun. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold a certain man clothed in linen, whose loins were girded with fine gold of Uphaz. His body also was like beryl, and his face as the appearance of lightning. Daniel 10:5-6. The men with him flee. Daniel remains trembling and alone. The voice that speaks sounds like many waters. Its weight presses him to the ground. Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard. Daniel 10:12. An unseen struggle has delayed the messenger. The prince of the kingdom of Persia, resisting until Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help. For Daniel, this is the unveiling of another layer of reality. The prayer moves through conflicts invisible to flesh and reason. Strength fails him. He can hardly breathe. Yet a hand touches him once, twice, and life flows back like current through his limbs. O man greatly beloved, fear not, peace be unto thee, be strong, yea, be strong. Daniel 10:19. These words become the prophet's final anchor. They teach that revelation is not spectacle but relationship, that the light which blinds also heals, and that strength in the spirit begins with surrender. Daniel rises, his body weak, his heart steady. He now understands that knowledge without love is unbearable, but when truth comes with peace, even mystery becomes mercy. The vision leaves him silent for days, holding within him a secret world where heaven and earth touch, and where a single prayer can draw light through centuries of darkness. The light that leaves. Daniel's eyes does not end the vision. He is shown the long corridor of history, kingdom after kingdom, the restless motion of human ambition trying to rule what it cannot hold. Now I will show thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Daniel 11:2. The prophecy unfolds in waves, north against south, east against west. Each ruler rises in pride, each empire believes itself eternal, and each falls, leaving only the dust of palaces and the echo of violence. The king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods. Daniel 11:36. To Daniel it is unbearable, the endless repetition of arrogance and collapse. Yet behind every shift he senses the same still hand, allowing time to teach what force never learns. To the philosopher, this chapter is politics written in prophecy. To Daniel, it is the map of the heart. Every soul that seeks to rule without reverence becomes another kingdom bound to fall. Between the lines of war and intrigue, the pattern of divine patience shines through. God lets human pride exhaust itself so that humility can recognize him again. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Daniel 11:32. That single verse stands like a lantern in the dark. Empires come and go, but the faithful remain quiet, steady, unyielding. Daniel writes these words not for kings, but for those who would one day read and understand that the true power is not in conquest, but in constancy. Daniel's visions draw toward their quiet conclusion. He has seen kingdoms rise and crumble, has stood between angels and kings, and now the final revelation comes, not of conquest, but of endurance. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation even to that same time. Daniel 12:1. This is not the fear of chaos, but the unveiling of justice, the hour when hidden truth steps out from shadow, and many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and to everlasting contempt. And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. And they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Daniel 12, 2-3. These are among the most luminous lines ever spoken through a prophet. For the first time, resurrection is not symbol or hope, but declaration. Life will not end in exile or in grave. The story will not finish in ruin. Daniel listens, trembling as the voice continues, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." Daniel 12:9. The message is not for him alone. It is a seed for ages yet unborn. He is told to rest, to let mystery remain mystery. For understanding will ripen only in its appointed season. To the mystic, the sealing of the words is grace, a reminder that revelation is not meant to be owned, only carried. To the philosopher, it is the humility of wisdom, that what cannot yet be known is still true. Daniel accepts the silence as he once accepted the fire and the lions, not as defeat, but as faith. For he now understands that the God who governs empires also counts the tears of the faithful, and that even dust will one day answer his call. But go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest, and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. Daniel 12:13. Exile began for Daniel as loss. His home, his name, his language, and his temple. Yet through those years of displacement, faith became more than a tradition, it became his breath. He learned that devotion does not depend on geography. When Jerusalem lay in ruins, he faced its direction and prayed anyway. When rulers changed, he served them faithfully but bowed to none. Every empire tried to shape him, and none succeeded. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself. Daniel 1:8. That single decision defined a lifetime. Faith, for him, was not the absence of danger but the consistency of character. He walked among idolaters, yet his loyalty stayed invisible but unbroken. He worked within pagan courts, but his heart remained a sanctuary. To those who watched him, Daniel seemed untouchable, but his strength was never his own. It came from that quiet inner place where the presence of God still whispered through the noise of Babylon. My God hath sent his angel, and hath shut the lions' mouths. Daniel 6:22. His story teaches that exile is not a location, it is a test of memory. Will we remember who we are when the world tries to rename us? Daniel remembered. That is why lions, fire, and kings could not unmake him. To the philosopher, his life shows integrity in motion. To the believer, it is testimony that divine faithfulness is not limited by borders. The God of Israel followed him into captivity, walked with him in visions, and proved that holiness is portable. Faith that endures exile is not loud or dramatic. It is steady. It is a lamp that refuses to go out, burning quietly until dawn returns. They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. Daniel 12:3. Daniel is remembered as a prophet, but beneath the prophecy lies a deeper identity, that of a thinker shaped by vision. A philosopher whose reason is baptized in revelation. In every chapter of his life, understanding grows not by argument, but by listening. He does not seek knowledge to control the world. He receives it to serve the truth. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. Daniel 2:21. His wisdom is born from awe. When he interprets dreams, it is never to glorify himself, but to confess the source of his insight. Each time the king praises him, Daniel redirects the light. There is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. That sentence is his philosophy. To human minds, truth is found through study. To Daniel, it is found through surrender. He learns that understanding flows from purity. That clarity belongs to those who refuse corruption. As for these 4 children, God gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. Daniel 1:17. In Babylon's universities, scholars sought patterns in the stars. Daniel looked beyond the stars to their maker. The wise men of the empire interpreted omens. Daniel interpreted purpose. His philosophy is simple yet eternal, that the mind and the spirit are not enemies. That reason, when humbled before holiness, becomes revelation. To the philosopher of the world, wisdom begins with the question, why? To Daniel, wisdom begins with the posture, "Here am I." His brilliance is not that he sees more than others, but that he knows where to look. He revealeth the deep and secret things. He knoweth what is in the darkness, and the light dwelleth with him. Daniel 2:22. Daniel's life proves that revelation is not a privilege of mystics alone, but the reward of those who stay faithful in thought and in heart. His mind became a mirror of heaven because it refused to reflect Babylon, and so long after kings and empires vanished, his wisdom endures, a quiet voice reminding every generation that the light which reveals mysteries still waits for those who kneel before it. What kept Daniel unbroken was not a throne, not influence, but a fire that burned quietly within. It was the same flame that sustained his friends in the furnace, the same presence that closed the lions' mouths, the same spirit that whispered truth when power demanded silence. Our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of thine hand. Okay. Daniel 3:17. This courage was not born of confidence in himself, but of communion with the eternal. He had seen kingdoms rise and fall. He had watched kings tremble before visions they could not understand. He knew that all human might was fragile dust before divine purpose. Courage, for Daniel, was clarity to see beyond threats into the unshakable reality of God's rule. He feared the loss of holiness more than the loss of life. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth. Daniel 6:27. Every day he opened his window toward Jerusalem, not as ritual, but as resistance. That small act was a declaration that the world may change its laws, but it cannot legislate the conscience of one who belongs to heaven. Spiritual courage does not roar. It kneels, it obeys when obedience costs everything. It trusts when reason has no answer. Daniel's fire was inward, a quiet certainty that the same God who walked with Abraham in the desert and Moses on the mountain was still near. Even in the heart of Babylon. To the philosopher, courage is discipline. To the mystic, it is intimacy with the infinite. Daniel's courage was both, mind surrendered, heart aflame. They that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion, which cannot be removed, but abideth forever. Psalm 125:1. That is the fire that cannot be quenched, the one that burns not to destroy, but to illuminate. It turns exile into mission, fear into witness, and death into testimony. And so, through Daniel's life, courage becomes not an emotion, but a state of worship, the steady flame of a soul that knows its God. Every revelation Daniel receives draws him closer to the center of all revelation, not just to messages from heaven, but to the messenger himself. Through every dream, every vision, he begins to recognize a presence that is both familiar and beyond comprehension. In his final visions, that presence appears not as thunder, but as light that thinks and speaks. And, behold, a hand touched me, which set me upon my knees and upon the palms of my hands. And he said unto me, O Daniel, a man greatly beloved, understand the words that I speak unto thee, and stand upright. Daniel 10:10-11. This voice does not come to announce a new empire or to terrify the prophet with power. It comes to call him by name. It is the word that shaped creation, now addressing a single heart in exile. Daniel realizes that all the mysteries, the beasts, the numbers, the kingdoms exist to lead him here, to the encounter between the human soul and the eternal word. Then said he unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words. Daniel 10:12. To the philosopher, this is revelation becoming dialogue. To the mystic, it is union, the meeting point between time and eternity. Daniel's body trembles, his breath falters, yet his spirit understands what language cannot hold, that the infinite stoops to speak to those who seek truth in humility. The word does not demand worship of fear. He gives peace. He strengthens what he touches. He reveals that divine wisdom is not distant, but personal, that heaven bends close to the heart that listens. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Daniel 10:19. This encounter is the summit of Daniel's journey. The visions of fire and beasts fade, and what remains is relationship. He understands that prophecy was never about power, but about presence, and that every revelation ultimately points to the one who is revelation itself. The mystery Daniel meets is the same that would one day take flesh and walk among men. The Word who would be light in darkness. Daniel does not yet know his name, but his spirit already recognizes his voice. After visions that opened the heavens and measured the ages, Daniel receives his final instruction, and it is not another secret or symbol. It is silence, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. Even to the time of the end, many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Daniel 12:4. The prophet who once heard angels and saw kingdoms fall is told to close the scroll. Revelation gives way to rest. The man who interpreted mysteries must now accept mystery to human pride. Silence feels like loss. To Daniel, it becomes obedience. He understands that truth not yet lived cannot yet be explained. He knows that the one who writes time also writes timing. The empires he served have already become dust. Babylon's gates stand broken. Persia will follow, and new rulers will soon rise with the same arrogance and the same end. Yet Daniel no longer trembles. The visions that once overwhelmed him now settle into peace. Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Daniel 12:9. Silence becomes his final prophecy, a stillness that speaks of faith without proof, trust without explanation. He has seen enough to know that God governs the unseen, and that history itself waits for his command. To the philosopher, this is resignation. To the mystic, it is worship. Daniel's silence is not empty. It is filled with the soundless presence of the God who needs no trumpet to be known. He walks through his last days quietly, the same faithful man who began praying by an open window decades before. He still faces Jerusalem, but now he understands that the true city is not in ruins. It waits in eternity. But go thou thy way till the end be. For thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the days. Daniel 12:13. The seer becomes the servant again. His task is complete. He leaves the scroll closed, his faith unbroken, his hope alive. And through his silence, God teaches every generation that sometimes the holiest act of understanding is to wait. Daniel had lived long enough to see the splendor of kings fade like morning mist. The palaces that once shone with gold now echoed with emptiness, and the names that once ruled the earth were forgotten by the next generation. He understood now what few men ever learned, that every human throne has an expiration date. He changeth the times and the seasons. He removeth kings, and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise, and knowledge to them that know understanding. Daniel 2:21. Daniel no longer fears change. He knows that behind every transfer of power stands a single unchanging king. The rise and fall of nations are only the breathing of history, but the breath itself belongs to God. He remembers the vision of the stone cut without hands that struck the great image of empire and became a mountain filling the earth. And the God of heaven shall set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed, and the kingdom shall not be left to other people. But it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Daniel 2:44. That promise outlives Babylon. Persia, Greece, and Rome, it waits quietly beneath the noise of wars and governments, growing like seed beneath the soil of time. To the philosopher, this is history finding its purpose. To Daniel, it is the final truth. The real kingdom is not built by power, but by purity. Not sustained by force, but by faith. The everlasting kingdom Daniel saw was not an empire of conquest, but of light, a dominion where justice and mercy meet, and truth reigns without sword or chain. Every vision of terror he once saw is now balanced by this final revelation, that no darkness lasts forever, and no human rule can silence the reign of God. His dominion is an everlasting dominion, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. Daniel 4:34. This becomes Daniel's peace. He no longer looks to the earth for security. His hope rests in the one who outlives the ages. The prophet's eyes close on dust, but open on eternity. And the last thought that passes through his heart is the same light that guided him through every trial. The kingdom of God is not coming. It has already begun. When Daniel's life fades from the stage of history, his influence does not. He leaves no monument of stone, no dynasty, no army to defend his name. Yet the quiet echo of his faith travels farther than any empire's decree. Generations after his passing, children of Israel will read his scrolls in secret, finding courage in the same words that once carried him through exile. Prophets will quote him. Wise men from the east will one day study his writings and follow a star because of them. They that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. Daniel 12:3. Daniel's faith was not designed for applause. It was a seed planted in Babylonian soil, meant to bloom across centuries. His obedience under pressure became a map for all who would live faithful in foreign lands. He taught that holiness can thrive under pagan kings, that integrity can survive political intrigue, and that divine wisdom can walk calmly through human chaos. The people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Daniel 11:32. The legacy of Daniel is not in prophecy alone, but in posture, the unbending spine of a man who knelt daily before God. His life whispers to every believer in every age. Stay steady. Even when truth is mocked, even when faith costs your comfort, the God who ruled in Babylon still rules now. To the philosopher. Daniel's story proves that ideas outlive institutions. To the believer, it proves that obedience outlives oppression. A single heart surrendered to God can alter the future more than 1,000 crowns. Daniel's courage built no empire, but it built something stronger, a legacy of trust. It taught exiles to pray, kings to fear heaven, and seekers to believe that light will return. And so his story continues, not written on tablets of stone, but on the hearts of all who still stand when the world bows. Daniel's story ends, but his voice still reaches across the ages. He lived through kingdoms and captivities, through the arrogance of kings and the silence of exile, yet his faith never changed. He entered Babylon as a captive, but he left this world as a conqueror, not of men, but of fear. The fire never owned him. The lions never defined him. And every vision he saw was a reminder that the throne of heaven still rules the earth. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who hath delivered Daniel from the power of the lions. Daniel 6:27. The world today burns with its own furnaces, temptation, corruption, injustice, doubt. But the same God who walked with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the flames still walks with all who choose faith over fear. Daniel's legacy is a challenge. Stand when others bow. Pray when others are silent. Trust when the outcome is uncertain. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Daniel 11:32. That verse is not ancient history. It is a living promise. Faith in the fire is not about survival. It's about revelation. It's about seeing that every trial becomes the stage for God's glory. So as this story closes, the question comes to you. What is your Babylon? Where is your furnace? And will your faith stand when the world bows? Because the spirit that strengthened Daniel still speaks, still calls, still delivers. If this story spoke to your heart, tell us in the comments which moment of Daniel's journey inspired you most and where in the world you're watching from. If you believe that God still delivers. Share this video with someone who needs hope today. And before you go, subscribe to Life in Christ and tap the bell so you never miss the next story of faith that changes lives. Because every story here reminds us, the fire cannot destroy what God refines. And the same spirit that stood with Daniel still stands with you.